Hello, everybody. My name is Zachary Sterling Harmon, for those of you that don't know. I am a resident counselor here at TEDxUVaWise. Today, I'm going to be giving you a talk titled Jails, Institutions, or Death. This is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to talk to you today not only about addiction and substance use disorders, but I'm also going to be speaking to you about stigma. Stigma is something that has been coming up in the research a whole lot lately, but there will be more about that here soon. What I want to do is I want to engage you. As my students here would tell you that come in to see me, I try to engage their thoughts. Words are very important, and words express not only our feelings, but our innermost desires and what we want to do as human beings. Okay? Keep that in your mind as the story progresses. First, since I said words are important, I figure it would be a good place to start by talking about what addiction is. Addiction is a treatable, chronic, medical disease, according to the American Society of Addictions Medicine. What that means for us is we're viewing it this specific way. Now, I have to tell you, today, I may have pulled a little trick because I chose this specific definition. There are many others elsewhere. I want you to make that very clear, and I want you to know that. The reason I chose this is because a lot of the work that I've done since graduating has been in the field of biological study. I know, interesting. But enough about biology for now. This takes into account the genetic makeup, not only that, but the environment, the individual's general life experiences. It's not just biology. But this is what we would consider in the field to be called the disease model of addiction and substance use. That is very important later on because there are many other models that a lot of people try and use to explain how to not only view it, but to treat it. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about next is called the 3 phases of addiction theory. This is a lot of what my work has been in. I had a publication where we did a whole bunch of meta-analyses that looked at how we can compare addiction and substance use disorders to the treatment of things like chronic pain, which we found out have a lot of similarities between the two. The first is incentive sensitization. That is a mouthful. This basically goes on to say that it's just pleasure, reward, and positive reinforcement. Now, since I'm speaking to college students, this is important because we're not naive on college campuses. This may be one of the first times you're going to be experiencing what substances are like. Things like alcohol, cannabis, cocaine, and the like. Next, we have opponent processes. This comes later on down the line. This is something that happens when you've been using the substance for a sustained period of time, but then take it away. This is often referred to as the dark side of addiction, where we have withdrawals and symptoms of such like that. The last is aberrant learning. This can simply be defined as the associative memory mechanisms of addiction. Goes on to say that it is just the learning that we do through experiencing things in life. This is important because what I'm going to explain to you next is how we are stuck. Those that have substance use disorders and addictions, they begin using, their life begins to deteriorate in social, emotional, occupational, or other factors, and then they receive stigma and judgment from those closest to them in the general society. Now, I know you can't tell this just by looking at me right now, but I have tattoos, I have visible piercings, I have stretched ears, and if you read my bio, what you see on paper may not add up to what you see in front of you right now in the moment. That is important because what you did is completely human. It's completely natural. You developed a mental schema in your mind about who that person on paper looks like, and it doesn't match what you see in front of you here today. That is going to be very important as the presentation goes on. Next, they may seek treatment, they may not, depending upon the way their life is going and the stigma that they've received in the meantime. And then many relapse. That is a fact. Lastly, they repeat the cycle. Now, I spoke to you earlier about the disease model of addiction. This slide is a question of morality. Substance use disorders can be easy to misunderstand, and society views drug abuse as being caused by a lack of will. Now, will It's talking about morality. What do you believe to be socially considered normal? Now, even moderate use can affect a person's mood, general disposition, and mental state, and that's important to note because many people choose to use substances. Alcohol is widely available in the United States and elsewhere. So that's a question to consider. Now, I'm going to speak to you as a counselor here for a moment because I've actually done the work. One of my first jobs was in an inpatient rehab. Many of the people there, they saw me, a young practitioner, and they weren't going to listen to me. And that is fine. I accepted that very early on. And I wanted their voices to be heard within this presentation as well. They would tell me, I don't have a disease. I don't have a problem. Nothing's wrong with me. I was told I needed to be here, and I can control how much I use. And I was like, that is great. Let's put that effort into changing the way that you think, not how you act just yet. People who perceive a high degree of stigma, as I mentioned earlier, are half as likely to actively receive help and seek treatment. And I don't know about you, but that breaks my heart because people do need help and they're not asking for it, and when it is offered, they are not allowing themselves to receive it. They would do anything they can to avoid being stigmatized. Now, even though medicine long ago reached a consensus that addiction is a complex brain disease combining genetics, biology, sociology, psychology with behavioral components, they still see it as a moral weakness and flawed character. And what I do want to point out is it's many in the healthcare field as well. People just like me. That is not a good thing. So my point of this talk here today is I'm trying to get everybody on board, young minds, to try and change the way we view a specific problem. But not only a problem, I want you to see them as people, because that's what they are. They're not a problem to be solved. They are people to be helped. They may experience shame, guilt, embarrassment, anomie. You may not recognize that term. It is a sense of deep isolation that they may feel. That is all due to one thing: stigma. Many people lose relationships. They lose loved ones, not by death, but by choice. They choose to no longer associate with them due to their disease. This is why that is important. When we're bystanders, people actively die every day. That's not even the most recent statistic. That's up to 2021. Now, I've spoken to you a whole lot already about stigma, but what I'm going to talk to you next is about social norms and what is called the bystander effect. I am up here today not being a bystander. I'm being active in trying to change the way that you think and the ways that you feel. But many do not choose to do that. Social norms are these invisible bindings that do not allow us to act because we see a society that is properly running as the way that it should. I don't think that that's good enough. So I'm going to teach you today about something called a biopsychosocial perspective. That is taking into account the holistic individual that we're seeing in front of us, somebody that is struggling, that does have a substance use disorder, but also they are specifically composed of their own biology, psychology, and social interactions and life experiences. Stigma can impede provision of seeking services, like I said earlier, and can actually reinstate substance use. It would actively cause somebody to relapse. Now, remember the people that I told you about earlier that would tell me that they just didn't have a problem, that they could control what they were doing? Of course they could. They were controlling it, but by not listening to the words that I say. And that was their choice, and that's okay. But it wasn't their choice. They were told time and time again that they do not deserve help because they are making a decision to exclude themselves from family, from friends, and from everybody that they care about. Now, this is not easy to accept, and it's not easy to change. Like I said earlier, even people within the medical field struggle to grasp this sometimes. The reason I'm giving this talk to you here today is because you are actually the age group that is most susceptible. Let that sink in. 18 to 25, that's 8.6 million people. I put this up here just to give you a general idea of how we view addiction. What do we see? Do we see it as an individual issue, a psychological issue, a family issue, social, societal? It's all of it. We need to take a broader scope. We can't just scapegoat one reason. This is titled Jails, Institutions, or Death, right? The reason that's the title of my presentation and my talk is because that is actively the way the people I treated, some that have become my friends, saw their life. They said, I have 3 options, and that's it. I can either go to jail, where I know I'm going to get 3 meals a day and a comfortable cot. I can go to an institution and have to talk to people like you, Zach, or I can die. The war on drugs has failed. We know that. Criminalization has not decreased the active availability of substances. We can find them. It's not hard. Nor has it reduced the number of overdose deaths, as you've already seen. It's only been increasing the more people that we institutionalize and the more people that we jail. Seems as if people have taken on a criminalization versus treatment standpoint. Should we treat them? Should we help them? Or should we throw them away and lock them up? I know what I would choose. As I said earlier, they're seen as a problem to be solved, not people to be helped. So what do we do? This is my call to action. This is what I'm asking you to actively do. In the counseling process, we have the thing called the trans-theoretical model of change, the stages of change model. We begin at pre-contemplation and we end at maintenance, but most people do relapse and the cycle begins again, only to strengthen. Now, you all may have come in here with a specific viewpoint, a specific mindset, and I am asking you to re-examine that, because that is the work that we should be doing as humans. I want you to change your perspective, even if it's in a small way, change your beliefs, and move forward and enact changes in public policy and have the potential to save lives, because you are the young people that are going to be inheriting what comes next. Many of you are in student government. You're going to be pushing forward, and you are going to be enacting real policy that may change lives. This is a perspective that I also wanted to present. The way the field of addiction research is going is to a harm reduction standpoint. Now, what that means is we're not telling people that they need to remain completely and totally abstinent. We're saying that that is problematic in and of itself. Because if I can't stop and you're telling me that I need to, and I see that those withdrawals are coming, I would rather die than do what you're telling me to do. So instead of that, you are seeing clinics start to pop up elsewhere in the world and in the US that are needle exchanges, so that people can get clean needles in order to inject themselves so that they do not continue to spread disease. They get case managers to assist them if they would like to receive help that same day. And they get counselors just like me. Harm reduction approaches have been proven to prevent death, injury, disease, and overdose. This is what you can do to help. And last but not least, I wanted to make sure that people's voices were going to be heard within my presentation. They might not be here today, but you can bet that they're going to be watching this on YouTube. And I wanted you to see what they had to say as well. Thank you.